Money is not real. And once I show you why that's true, you're going to start making very different decisions with it. Think about the last time you were stressed about money. Maybe it was a bill you couldn't cover, a number in your bank account that made your stomach drop, or just that low-grade anxiety that hums in the background of your life, the feeling that you never quite have enough. That stress felt real. The consequences felt real. But here's the thing nobody tells you, the money itself? It's not. And I don't mean that in a nihilistic, burn your savings, nothing matters kind of way. I mean it in a way that, once it clicks, is genuinely one of the most liberating and practically useful things you'll ever understand about the world. So let's talk about what money actually is. Because most people have never stopped to ask. Here's where most people's mental model of money begins and ends. You work, you get paid, you spend it, you try to save some. Money is the thing you trade for other things. Simple enough. But that picture has a massive gap in it, and that gap is where all the real power is hidden. Let's go back to basics. Before money existed, people bartered. You have chickens, I have wheat, we swap. Straightforward. But barter has a fatal flaw. What if I need your wheat, but you don't need my chickens right now? What if your wheat is worth 12 chickens, but I only have 7? What if I'm a doctor and the potato farmer doesn't need medical care this week, but I'm hungry today? Barter collapses almost immediately at scale. So humans invented something remarkable. They agreed, collectively, without anyone forcing them, to assign value to a third object. Not because that object had any intrinsic worth, but because everyone agreed to pretend it did. First it was grain, then seashells, then clay tablets, then metal coins, then paper. Now increasingly numbers on a screen. And here's the plot twist. None of those things were money because of what they were. They were money because of what people believed about them. Yuval Noah Harari, the historian who wrote *Sapiens*, puts it this way: money is not a material invention. It's a mental revolution. It's what he calls an intersubjective reality, something that exists not in the physical world, and not just in your head, but in the shared imagination of millions of people simultaneously. Like laws, like nations, like corporations. None of those things exist in nature. You can't go find France in the ground. You can't hold justice in your hands. But they're enormously real in their consequences because enough people agree to act as if they are. Money is the same, is the world's most successful shared fiction. And the key word there is shared, because that's where its power comes from. Now, let me show you what happens when that shared fiction breaks down. Because this isn't theoretical. It has happened more than once, in vivid, terrifying, instructive detail. Germany, 1923. After World War I, the German government was drowning in war reparations it couldn't pay. So it did what desperate governments do: it printed money. More and more of it. At first, prices ticked up a little. Then a lot. Then the whole thing went vertical. By November of that year, $1 was worth 4 trillion German marks. People needed wheelbarrows full of cash to buy a loaf of bread. Workers were paid twice a day because by lunchtime, the morning's wages had already lost half their value. Shop owners would raise prices while customers were still standing in line. What happened? There wasn't some mysterious economic force. What happened was that people stopped believing. The shared fiction broke. And when the belief collapsed, the money became literally worthless, not because the paper changed, not because the ink changed, but because the collective agreement evaporated. Or take the Confederate dollar during the American Civil War. As the South started losing, as defeat became more and more obvious, people stopped accepting Confederate currency. Not because a law changed, not because the paper was different, but because nobody wanted to be holding something the community no longer believed in. By the end, Confederate dollars were essentially decorative. And here's what makes this so uncomfortable to sit with. The US dollar is not fundamentally different from those currencies. Is not backed by gold. It hasn't been since 1971, when President Nixon quietly ended the system that tied the dollar to a physical commodity. Today, the dollar is backed by one thing: trust. Trust in the US government, trust in the Federal Reserve, trust in the 330 million people who wake up every morning and act as if it has value. That trust is enormous. It's deep. It's not going away tomorrow. But is not a law of nature. It is a collective agreement. And collective agreements can shift. So here's where it gets interesting. And this is the part most people miss. If money is a shared belief system, then its power doesn't come from the object. It comes from the network. It comes from how many people believe in it and how consistently they act on that belief. And that means the most valuable thing you can do isn't hoard a specific kind of money. It's understand what kinds of belief are durable and position yourself accordingly. Think about what's happening right now. Cryptocurrencies challenge the idea that governments get to be the sole administrators of the shared fiction. Some people opted into a different belief network. It was volatile because the network was small and new and trust was thin. But the underlying idea that you can run a monetary system on collective agreement without a central authority, that idea is now permanently in the conversation. Central banks around the world are building their own digital currencies partly in response to it. Meanwhile, inflation, which at its core is just the shared belief that things are worth more than they used to be, has made a generation of people acutely aware that the purchasing power of their money is not fixed. It is fluid. It is managed. Is subject to decisions made in rooms most of us will never see. Understanding this isn't cause for panic. It's cause for clarity. So what do you actually do with this? Here's where it gets practical. First, stop treating money as a thing and start treating it as a tool within a system of belief. That reframe matters more than it sounds. People who are financially savvy don't hoard cash. They understand that holding cash means holding a belief. They ask, which beliefs are durable and which are eroding? Inflation is essentially the slow erosion of the dollar belief. Real assets, skills, land, productive businesses, things that have value regardless of what people call the unit of exchange, those hold up when the fiction gets wobbly. Second, diversify what you believe in. This doesn't have to mean dumping your savings into crypto or gold, though both are legitimate conversations to have. It means not putting all your financial security into a single monetary system. If 100% of your net worth is in US dollars sitting in a savings account, you are making a very concentrated bet on one specific belief network. Some exposure to real assets, some exposure to equity in things that produce value. That's not paranoia. That's just recognizing the nature of the game. Third, understand that your earning power is the most inflation-proof asset you have. Skills, relationships, reputation. These convert into whatever the dominant medium of exchange is at any given moment. A carpenter in 1923 Weimar Germany could still trade their labor for food, even as the marks became worthless. A person with deep expertise and strong relationships weathers monetary turbulence better than someone with a bigger savings account and no adaptable skills. Fourth, and maybe most importantly, stop being afraid of the illusion and start using it. Because here's the flip side of everything I just told you. The fact that money is a shared belief is not a bug in the system. Is the feature. It is why a single person with a compelling idea can raise capital from strangers. It is why trust compounds over time. It is why reputation is literally a financial asset. The system rewards people who understand how belief works and build accordingly. Money is not real. And that's the most powerful thing about it. Because it means money is not something that happens to you. It's something that humans collectively construct, and that means you can understand the construction. You can work with it. You can position yourself on the right side of how the belief is shifting. The people who panic when they hear money isn't real are the people who were treating it like bedrock. The people who hear it and feel oddly relieved, they are the ones who are already sensing that the rules of the game were weirder and more flexible than anyone was telling them. They're right. The question isn't whether the fiction will hold forever. It won't. No monetary system in history has. The question is, are you building something that survives the next time the story changes? Do not forget to subscribe for more. And drop a comment. Did this change how you think about money, or were you already onto this? I'm genuinely curious where you're starting from.